Okay, good morning, friends. Shalom Aleichem, Ruchim Abam. We're continuing in Mishna Berura Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman, Kuf Chaf Daled, Seif, Yud Aleph. Im ba'oid ha'adam espalel, siyam shel tzibur bracha. If, while a person was davening, the shel tzibur finished a bracha. So at the time the bracha finished, you were not able to answer amen. You're in the middle of davening. V'koydem shekol sa'niyas amen mipiroiv ha'tzibur. But before the majority of the tzibur finished answering amen, siyam zet tfilasai. You finish your tefillah. Now you can answer amen. So what do? Oneimam amen. You answer amen. We don't say, well, since at the time that you heard it, you were davening, so now you don't come back in. No, we say that if right now you finished your davening and you could still, it's still within the time frame, then answer amen. Hagav afilim lo shama habracha klal. Let's say you didn't hear the bracha at all. Rak shoymei tzibur oinem amen. V'yoidea leiza bracha ka. You know what bracha they're speaking, that you know what bracha was being made. And this talking about obviously a bracha that you don't need to be yoitze with. Yani imahem v'chein b'kadosh u'kedusha u'barchu. Says Mishna Berura, v'koydem shekolsa ratzoloymer after nisbar b'sivches b'haga d'tzarach lanis amen miyad k'shekil habracha. Even though we learned earlier that you need to answer amen as soon as the bracha is finished, shilav hachi, otherwise have a ka'ina amen b'li bracha klal. Otherwise it's like answering amen without a bracha at all. If you don't answer amen when the bracha is done, then you're not allowed to answer amen. Otherwise, it's like answering amen without a bracha. Here, if the majority of the tzibur has not finished answering amen, it's still good. Answering amen is also part of the bracha. Amen. And when they answer amen, have a kamay shayu goimrim ata etzam habracha. It's like they're finishing the bracha. Now this is interesting. We have a similar svara. We know that there's an idea in diktuk that when a word appears at the end of a phrase, the nekuda is transformed into a kamatz. Let's say in the Megillah, the name is Mardechai, except when the name appears at the end of a pasuk or at an asnachta, it's Mardechai. There's one exception where there's no asnachta in the pasuk, the zakev katan becomes an asnachta, and therefore the Mardechai becomes the Mardechai. Okay.
This is why you can't use the Megillah. You need to use the Chumash.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. In other words, if a person said Mardechai or Chai incorrectly, that's not what I'm referring to. That would not be a problem. I'm referring to a milel marad that could change the meaning of the word. Yeah, but the stam, many people say his name is Mordechai. There's no such individual, Mordechai. It's Mordechai HaTzadik. Okay, it's nice. He's probably a good guy. I don't know what he has to do with the Purim story, but I'm talking about Bari Pri HaGefen now. We Ashkenazim say Bari Pri HaGefen. Why? Because it's the last word of a sentence, so it's Bari Pri HaGefen. But Sfardim say Bari Pri HaGefen. Why? Because of this svara. Because amen is part of the bracha. So therefore, gofen is not the last word of the phrase. Gefen is the last word of the phrase. Amen is the last word of the phrase. Okay, some say that that's not a good svara by amen, but it's similar to what the Mishna Berura says over here. Okay. The Taz argues, and he paskins, that even if the whole tzibur finished answering amen, you could still answer if it's right after them. In other words, the Mechaber says, as you can only answer if it's still before most of the tzibur answered amen. The Taz says even if the whole tzibur answered amen, you could answer amen right after them. Rabbi Akiva Eiger and the Magen Giborim, They agree to Shulchan Aruch v'ayin beber halacha. Siyem, sivkat mem gimel. Siyem zed tefillah, so Ratzal achar yul ratzain. Namely, after yul ratzain. Ukvar amar tachnunim harago bahem. He already said the supplications that he frequently says. Otherwise, he can't just answer Amen. And even if he didn't hear the bracha, now the Rama adds, even if he didn't hear the bracha. Hu gam ken l'divrei ha'mechaber. This would also be according to the mechaber. V'lo chidesh rak b'ma shekatz v'yadei alei bracha. He's only adding the words he didn't hear the bracha, that would fit in according to the mechaber. All the Rama is adding is, and you need to know what bracha is being said. He's going according to his own shita, that if you don't know what bracha is being said, in his opinion, you can't answer. Amen. The mechaber would say, it's not a Amen Yisayma. The Rama would say, if you don't know what bracha is being said, it is a Amen Yisayma. So the Rama is really only adding v'yodeya, but it's not, lo shama habracha klal would even be in the shita of the mechaber. Shoymea hatzibor. So, even if you didn't hear the bracha at all, just, you heard the tzibor answering Amen. Says the Mishnah Berura, Hu adinim shama sheyachid oina Amen. The same thing would be if you hear an individual answer Amen. You know what bracha is going on. You can answer with him. V'nakat tzibor. The reason why the Rama picked the case of tzibor, mishum da'ari ha'mechaber le'inyan tzibor. The mechaber is talking about tzibor. V'af agav ha'mechaber ino mater ela kadem shekalsa amen mipi roiv. Even though the mechaber only allows it if the amen has not yet been answered by roiv, aval hamiyat loy mahani. It's not going to help if a miyad is still answering Amen. Hani mishum the miyad legabi roiv habakamandalasa. That's because the miyad relative to the roiv is insignificant. But if there's no tzibur at all, and there's only one guy, you could also answer with him. In other words, let's say you finish Shemona Esrei, you hear a guy saying a bracha, and one guy is answering Amen with him, you can answer Amen as well. V'chein b'kadish, hainu d'chol shaloi simu roiv hatzibor la'anois. That is, as long as the majority of the tzibur did not finish answering, oine imam, you can answer with them. Afal pi shaloi shama klom mi pi hashliach tzibor, even though you didn't hear anything from the shots. V'ayin b'siman nun vav b'mishnah Berura sivkatan tes v'siman nun zayin sivkatan beis v'ayin b'ber halacha divrei hamaschal v'koydem b'soifay. Okay, let's finish up Siman Kuf Chaf Dalet. Here we go. Ha'oina Amen la yagbia koila yoser me'hamavarach. Someone who answers Amen should not raise his voice louder than the one making the bracha. So you need to, when somebody makes a bracha, you need to determine the decibel level of the mevarich and answer on that decibel level. Says Mishnah Berura, la yagbia koila mishum d'chsiv gadlu lashem iti. Proclaim God's name great with me, and elevate His name together. We'll elevate His name together. V'nira, du adin le'inyan baruchu. The same thing would be for baruchu. You want to answer baruchu, it should be at the same decibel. What about Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah? The Pri Megadim is masupik if you're allowed to be magbia koilo yoser ha'imar kaddish. What's the shaila? Maybe only legabe a shevach, but not a bakasha. Right? As we mentioned, there's no such thing as Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah. It's Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah. You need to pause between the Amen and the Yehi Shmei Rabbah. So the Yehi Shmei Rabbah is a bakasha. If you're answering a bakasha, the Rabbi Chio Michal Tikachinsky and the Gasher Achayim, Shlomo Zalman, they say you're allowed to be magbia koiloi, even not only in the Yehi Shmei Rabbah, but in the Amen also of Kaddish. The Divrei Chamudais El Yarabah, the Kaf HaChaim, say you should not raise your voice even when you say Amen Yehesh Meir Abba. Says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Yehesh Meir Abba, you could be Magbia Koiloi, Amen Lo Yagbia Koiloi. Are you allowed to answer lower than the Mavarech? He brings from Hagois Re'im Horowitz in Brachos that if you're now to raise your voice, you can't say it lower. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, no, only you can't say it louder. Okay. If you're raising your voice to encourage people to answer, you're allowed to. Ratu, Sif Gimel V'ayin Sham Oid. After ketanim who are b'nei chinuch, you need to answer amen after their bracha. What age is the age of chinuch? 6 or 7. But so that then what? On a 3-year-old kid that makes a bracha, you don't answer amen. So he brings from the Shas Yeshiva Salmas Chaim that even a little child that makes a bracha, you make a bracha. You used to answer amen to his bracha. And the stipler as well answer amen even on a kid who didn't reach chinuch. The Mishnah Berura says that we don't answer amen on a child shall yigil chinuch. That's only what the Mishnah Berura means is there's the chiyuv of answering amen is only to a child who reached the age of chinuch. But you're allowed to answer amen to a smaller child in order to be mechanech him to answer amen. In other words, you don't have a personal obligation, but to train the child you're allowed to. However, Reb Shlomo Zalman himself was careful not to say amen on a bracha on a child shelo yigia lechinuch. He would say amen. He would not pronounce the word completely. So he would say something so that the child should think that you answer amen to a bracha, but technically you're not really allowed to answer amen. So halachically, you have a 4-year-old kid making a bracha on a lollipop. Halachically, you're not allowed to answer amen. Should you? The stipler did. Rav Shlomo Zalman got around it.
Why are you not allowed to?
Why are you not allowed to? Because it's...
Earlier when we said that you can get a bracha pop, things like that, so I understand. This is sheker shabbat. You're not allowed to, proclaim that bracha is true. But here, what's wrong with that's in bracha?
The bracha has no meaning. The katan has no das. The words have no significance. Yeah. The same way you can't...
Has das? Then it has meaning?
Yeah, sure. Sure. If he... Yeah. Katan shigil lechinuch, he might be able to light and be moitzi you in menorah. His actions are significant. The same way you can't answer amen delayed because the amen is not connected to the bracha. You can't answer amen is the name of Hashem. It stands for Hashem's name, Kel Melech Ne'eman. You're not allowed to just walk around saying it. So you can't say it technically on a child shel yigia lechinuch. V'achar shoita ein lanos amen. After shoita, you can't answer amen. The lav bar mitzvah klal. U'primagadim shekasav achar chirish v'shoita shigur delishnu the chirish hamadaber ve'na shamea is chayv v'mitzvahs b'vadei chayv v'mitzvahs. V'achar noshim. Are you ready for this? Could you answer amen after the bracha of a woman on mitzvah saseh shazman grama? So I would say it depends if they're Ashkenazi or Sephardi. If they're Ashkenazi, you can answer amen. If they're Sephardi, you cannot answer amen because they're not allowed to make the bracha in the first place. It's a bracha levatala. So, v'achar noshim sheberchu al mitzvah saseh shazman grama yuchal lanois amen. You can answer amen. However, you don't have to, obviously. The Pri Megadim says that it's not a chiyuv. You hear this? You hear a woman making a bracha on a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, you're allowed to, but you don't have to. What about a guy? The Ramah says in Siman Reish Tezvav, if you hear a guy say a blessing, you're allowed to answer amen. What about a bracha of a reformed Jew? Rav Moshe says, no, you're not allowed to answer amen. Dinam kapi karsam uberchasam ein a bracha. What about on a bracha of a person who's not Sharma Torah mitzvahs? Rabbi Yashiv says you answer Amen. It's not like reform. Rabbi Yashiv said reform are koifer b'Hashem of Tairasai. But if someone who's not a Sharma Torah mitzvahs, you could answer Amen.
Reform is worse than a goy? Why are you allowed to answer Amen to a goy's bracha?
No further comments. But that's what we said. Yeah? That's the halacha. They're considered, that's what Rabbi Yashiv paskind. However, someone who's not Sharma Torah mitzvahs, yesh l'shmaya as kol habracha, the Lord shaber karai. Now, on a woman who is a Sfardi that makes a bracha on a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, or like Baruch Sha'amar and Yishtabach, you're not allowed to answer Amen because they're not allowed to do it. That's why parents who are Sfardim have to be very careful sending their children to Ashkenazic schools, because they're going to coerce them to follow Ashkenazic halacha, which is not correct for them. They're not allowed to say brachos shazman grama. What else? And if a malach comes to you, I'll tell you Maisa Shahaya. Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov was once in an airport, and the stewardess said, "Have a safe flight," and he said, "Amen." And his daughter asked him, that was a pretty loud and noticeable Amen. And he said, well, the Ramban says that when the malach came to Sarah and said she's going to have a child, what was the taina on Sarah? The Ramban learns the taina was she should have said Amen. Now Sarah didn't know that these were angels. She thought they were Aravim. And still, regarding the shaila that we brought up before, Birchas Nachri, that we said the Ramah holds that you answer Amen. A good raya would be from the Ramban in Parshas Vayera that Sarah is held accountable for not answering Amen to the bracha of the individual who she thought was a Oived Kochav Mazalais. Now there it's a bigger chiddush, because it wasn't just a guy. Avram Avinu had them wash off the dust of their feet. That means he held that they were Oivdei Avodah Zarah. But if they give you a bracha, you need to answer Amen. That might be different. That might be where they give you a personal bracha, so their kavana is not to bless their so-called God. But when the person at hand, when there's a question, maybe their kavana is to some type of heretical belief, then Yitaka can't answer Amen. Whether it's a deviant movement in Judaism or if it's an Oived Kochav Mazalais. Yeah? Okay, Rabbi Sai, have a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha.
Recording stopped.